Welcome to Encounter, where we celebrate putting faith into action and community leaders who live out compassion, grace, and love. We're a program of the Broome County Council of Churches that addresses food insecurity through CHOW and the Greater Good Grocery, provides hospital and jail ministry, builds wheelchair ramps, and assists neighbors with transportation and shopping services through Faith in Action volunteers. We invite you to the conversation. Encounter your neighbors as we learn to walk together in love and kindness.
I'm your host, Joe Sellepack, the Executive Director at the Broome County Council of Churches. When I think of Martin Luther King, whose birthday we are celebrating this weekend, one of the passages of Scripture that I always go to is this one from Galatians chapter 4. It says, "Now you, my friends, are children of promise like Isaac. But just as that time the child who is born according to the flesh persecuted the child who is born according to the Spirit, so it is also now. But what does the Scripture say? Drive out the slave and her child, for the child of the slave will not share the inheritance with the child of the free woman. So then, my friends, we are children, not of the slave, but of the free woman. For freedom Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to the yoke of slavery." There have been many people who have come along who have taught us how to shake off that yoke of slavery. I happen to, I'll just say some of my heroes. One of them is Fannie Lou Hamer from Mississippi. Another one is Harriet Tubman from the state of New York, and somebody whose legacy we still celebrate today, as well as Malcolm X and Frederick Douglass, all these amazing men and women who have, in my estimation of it, help us understand a little bit about the yoke of slavery and how we have to shake it off. One of those folks, too, is the legacy and the ministry of Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King, of course, is one of the archetypes of community organizing, of civil rights legislation, of even being a minister in the church. There are so many ways that I look up to Martin Luther King. To help me kind of parse out Martin Luther King's life and his legacy and what it means for us as people who are trying to shirk off that yoke of slavery, is Damond Wilson. Damond is no stranger to Encounter. He is the finance director for the Council of Churches, but he wears so many hats. He's also the pastor at Trinity AME Zion Church, as well as the president of the NAACP. Welcome to Encounter, Damond.
Well, thank you for having me. Like you said, I'm no stranger to Encounter, and I'm glad to have another opportunity to talk about what's going on in the community.
Well, thanks. And so this whole thing about Martin Luther King and his legacy and his ministry, how important has Martin Luther King been to you as a minister, and what has his legacy meant to you especially as a young pastor? Can you say something about that?
So Dr. King's legacy has been pivotal to my development as a minister, as a preacher, but especially as a Black man. For those who know my story, I grew up in the Atlanta area, and because of that, King is highly talked about, highly publicized. The King Center is down there, the gravesite is in Atlanta, and just you grow up knowing about the King legacy, especially coming up in that area. But also too, as you know from our conversations before, that a major reason why I decided to go to seminary in Rochester, New York, was because of its ties to Dr. King, where I was able to see his application letter and see some of his writings and some of the memorabilia that he used while he was attending Crozer Theological Seminary. And I feel it was because of King's legacy that I'm in ministry today, because like King, he was a minister of the gospel, but also a minister of the community.
Right.
And he also held both, very close together. And in a lot of ways, I see myself holding that same two things together: ministry in the church, but also community and society.
And how did, like, when you're thinking about Martin Luther King, how did those two things really come together? Like, we were talking before, King the preacher, King the civil rights leader. Like, how do those things come together in the way that he went about doing his business?
So I think that a major tenet of his preaching and his teaching and his advocacy revolved around the idea of a beloved community, where people are appreciated because they're all made in the image of God, and that everyone is deserving of love. And that is central to the Bible. As we know, with Christ, who said, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, but also love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
And I think he took that tenet and put it into not only his theology, but also his sociology,
right,
and how people should be treating one another.
Yeah, and really, I mean, with that text from Galatians where it talks about shirking off the yoke of slavery, leading up to that, there was this whole discussion about freedom and love. And how freedom and love kind of go together, both as a way to guide and direct us, but also love giving a correction to freedom, because freedom without love is just licentiousness. But when you add love to it, it makes it a different story. And I think that's it. Do you think that that's what King was trying to get to with his work?
I think that definitely he was a proponent of freedom in the sense that people are allowed to be full participants,
right,
in the body politic, but also the freedom to express oneself.
Right.
Because love allows us to not only account for people's faults, but also account for who God created us to be, and to celebrate that. In a world, in a society where it was one-dimensional, you have to be like this, you have to look like this, you have to be from this part of town, King came in and decided that, hey, no, we don't have to be one-dimensional. We can be universal, we can be diverse, and still show love and appreciate who God made us to be.
Yeah. And so we're going to be talking a little bit more about this service, but tomorrow we are celebrating a service for Martin Luther King Day. It's been a long-standing. What are some of the behind the scenes, like when you're thinking about, like, what are you trying to communicate through the service, as far as what King's legacy is? Like, what are some of the things that you pick up on and say, this has to be a part of the service? You know what I mean?
Right.
And how do you what are some of those things?
So, out of respect, I do have to start with the event happening in the evening. It starts with a march and then ends with a community service. And that is headed by the MLK Commission, which I am not a member of, which it is chaired by Reverend Arthur Jones. And this has been a long-standing commission in the area. But what goes behind that event is really bringing the community together. We have the Martin Luther King statue and the Martin Luther King Peace Center right there off of Court Street. And that's where it begins. That's where we ask the community to come together and march the same way that Dr. King did back in the civil rights movement. And march not only from the promenade, but go up to the church where it's going to be hosted at. And so that is just symbolic of just the community coming together and celebrating a righteous cause.
Right.
And so the service is really an opportunity to hear from elected officials, community members. I myself, as the president of the NAACP, will be in attendance, and I also will be on program to speak. And so it's an opportunity for the community to see that we can come together.
Right, right.
Regardless of all the divisive rhetoric that's been in the news and on social media, regardless of the contention that we see in the newspapers or, between elected officials, this is honestly an opportunity for us to come together as a community and kind of pay homage to that beloved community that King held so closely. But at the same time, I want to also lift up another program that's happening earlier that day. And this program is going to be led by the NAACP personally. It is our youth, a young adult MLK celebration, where we're going to have an event dedicated to the youth, ran by the youth, for the youth. And so some of the special features we're going to have a community youth choir that's been practicing. First Lady LaVon Wilson of Trinity AME Zion.
Oh, you don't know her
exactly.
Very well, right?
I think I know a little bit about her. And also in collaboration with First Lady Barnett from House of Worship.
Right.
They've come together to put together the youth choir, community choir, who will perform at the event. We also have interpretive dance from Angels of Praise and a couple youth speakers and poems. And so what we're doing is showing that youth can come together and uphold that legacy of Dr. King and have a showing of what the beloved community looks like. And so because of us working with youth, it's a wonderful opportunity for just people from the community to see that youth can come together.
Right, right.
There's always that stigma or that understanding that, the youth are they're disassociated, they're detached from from society and what things that they should be concerned about. But that's not necessarily the case.
No.
Youth have a different perspective than, the older crowd does, but that doesn't mean that they don't care.
Right.
And so this event is showing the community that, yes, youth can come together around the issues, around love, justice, and equity, and still uphold what Dr. King believed in.
And movement was very important to that. Like you had suggested, the march was also symbolic too. What was interesting to me, and this was something I did with my kids when they were young. We were going down to Pensacola, Florida. Just to go on. It was like my dad had rented a condo. It was like this big thing, and I had to drive because nobody can afford to fly with 4 people, and it's just really, really expensive. So we drove down there, and I intentionally drove from Selma. I decided to go from Selma to Montgomery, and on Christmas Day. So nothing was open, and I drove the march across the bridge, the Edwin Pettus Bridge, all the way along the route, and I stopped at all the various places. And one of the things that was interesting to me was my kids were, they were very young at the time. They were both in middle school. They're much older now. But anyway, the questions that they asked were, well, why didn't they drive? Or why, there was like a number of things that came from that. But the more we talked about it, well, the profound impact that seeing a mass of people walking that long, it's a very long route between Selma and Montgomery. It gave not only, from my perspective, a picture of the effort that it was going to take, but the time, just the long time, a week of walking to get there, and how much effort that community had to take in order to drive that home. The idea that freedom is hard fought and should be something that we fight for and we understand.
Right.
So I think when you're talking about that march, it's important for movement to be a part of that, but then also that dance, right? So why is dancing important?
Well, to fully answer that question, you really have to go into the history of African American people,
right?
And even predating America, going back to traditional the motherland, Africa.
Right. Yeah.
Where dance has always been a pivotal part of expression.
Right.
If you go to Africa today and go to visit certain countries, like for example, I was in Ghana a couple of years ago, and one of the ways they welcomed us at the airport was through song and dance. So here we are getting off the plane, going through customs, getting our luggage and leaving the airport, and we just automatically see this group of dancers and just welcoming us.
Right.
And so it's a way for a people to express not only their culture and their individuality, but also as a way to welcome others in. And so, we, in a different way, want to celebrate that here and at the afternoon service with youth, saying, you know what, this is our community. This is how we identify ourselves. Welcome.
And what time and venue are these two services going to be taking place?
So I'll start with the NAACP. Our event is happening at 12 o'clock noon. It's happening at Trinity AME Zion.
Okay.
And parking is down the street at Greater Faith.
Okay.
So both churches are very close to each other. So you can park at Greater Faith and walk up to Trinity AME Zion. And so that's going to be from 12 to 2. The evening service led by the MLK Commission will start at 6 at the Promenade and march to First Congregational Church. And service will start promptly at 7.
At 7.
Yes.
So what time do they gather at
6.
At 6.
Yes.
So it goes from the MLK Promenade where the statue is.
Right.
So that's where everybody gathers.
That's what gathers, right.
All right. So that you go from there, and then if they don't want to walk.
Right. They can drive it straight to the church, which is off of Main Street.
Yeah, it's front and main, right there
exactly.
at the corner.
Right.
I love saying that. You know, there's a church at the corner of Front and Main.
Right. Exactly.
So
exactly.
So as one of the thoughts that I thought was very provocative at one point in time was the question, and this has happened during my lifetime, because MLK Day became a federal holiday, and we began to celebrate Martin Luther King. And one of the cautions that a lot of civil rights workers were talking about at the time when they were going through the federal legislation trying to make it work, was the question about his propheticness, and how by making a federal holiday out of Martin Luther King, we were diminishing his ability to be prophetic and to speak truth to power. You want to talk a little bit about that? Like, what are your thoughts about that, and why is it important for us to celebrate on MLK Day Martin Luther King's legacy?
So I think people need to understand that Dr. King was not always a celebrated figure that we see today.
Right.
For many years, especially after his death, he was not well liked. His poll numbers would have been low if we wanted to use common terminology. But because of advocacy of individuals like Stevie Wonder,
well, yeah,
and his song "Happy Birthday to You," that was to bring awareness to the King holiday and making his birthday a national holiday.
Right.
That, in addition with the advocacy from the King family, finally changed the narrative and changed people's hearts enough to actually put the holiday and make it, get the holiday. And so I think there's several dynamics at play here. And when we talk about prophetic, speaking truth to power and making sure that we do not lose sight of the work that still needs to be done, I think there is a level of understanding that everyone needs to have, is that, yes, we have a long way to go. We haven't arrived yet as a people to the beloved community that Dr. King spoke about. But at the same time, we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just because we don't have everything that he advocated for, we don't live in that society yet, doesn't mean that we can't uphold his legacy to love, justice, and equity. because without the holiday, a lot of people wouldn't know or wouldn't understand, why we need to continue the fight and continue the journey. Because some people just believe that this is just a free day off from work, which is definitely not the case.
It reminds me a little bit of when I was walking through the Civil Rights Museum. This would have been a few years ago. I was in Memphis, and I was walking through the Civil Rights Museum at the place where Dr. King was assassinated. That's the hotel there. The name of it is escaping
Lorraine
me.
Motel.
Yeah, Lorraine Motel. And I'm walking through it, and I'm listening to conversations between a couple of kids that were in there, and and anybody that's been there, it's a powerful experience. It's filled with the drama and the travesties, really, in a lot of ways, between the Middle Passage and Africa and the United States, and the effects of slavery, and then you're walking through basically the civil rights struggle. And there are pictures on the walls of all the things that had occurred, and there was this one young girl they're kind of shocked because you're having to experience all of that, and then this one girl says, they wouldn't burn a church, would they? And then he said, well, this is saying, that's exactly what they did. They threw bombs at a church in Alabama. And this girl goes, oh, that's terrible. Why would they do that? But as a way, all of that is to say that it retells the story, and it reminds us again that there was this struggle that took place, and you need to be there in order to understand that, right? And the only way that you're going to have that space to understand it is by hearing the story over and over again, right?
Right.
So like when you think about that story, well, like how important are these things then to remind us of what took place and how much work we have yet to do?
That's a perfect segue into what I want to talk about as far as the work of the NAACP. And our job is to continue that struggle for justice, because again, we haven't made it there yet. We are, as a group, the NAACP is committed to continue on the legacy of Dr. King through love, justice, and equity, because like your story showed, we don't see people bombing churches as they did back then, but that same level of injustice happens in other spaces. And one of the initiatives that the NAACP is actually working towards is acknowledging the history of Binghamton. One of the ways that the history has been erased is through naming of Columbus Park.
Yeah.
We know and we see that has always been a diverse part of the community. And because of, urban renewal and gentrification, we see that a lot of the history has been dismissed from the area. And so when we first announced this initiative, a lot of people say, oh, why are you messing with that? Are you just trying to erase history? No, we're not erasing history. We're adding to history that's been erased, right? And people need to understand that we all have played a part in making Binghamton what it is today. And we all need to celebrate that common history that puts us together. Because like you stated earlier with the verse from Galatians, is that we can't become slave again to what we've learned from, hopefully, from the past.
Yeah.
We've seen church bombings, we've seen history erased in the past, but we see ourselves coming to a point to where we're starting to see that again. And in order to stop that, we have to advocate, one, but also have a change of heart, two, to acknowledge that, we are one people. One people cannot lay claim, especially to a part of the city that has been populated by African Americans, by Irish, by Polish, by Jewish members, and just all erase that whole history, especially when there have been so many contributing factors to the area.
Right. And so some of that, so these two opportunities for people to reconnect with the legacy of Dr. King again. One is occurring at Trinity AME Zion, and that's for youth. specifically, but everybody can.
Everyone can attend. Yes.
Can attend.
Yes.
So you want to talk about the date and the venue and
yes.
all of
So
that?
yes, again, we are meeting at Trinity AME Zion, which is located on 203 Oak Street, down in the First Ward, in the historic part of Binghamton City. It starts at 12 p.m. and it runs to 2 p.m. There will be performances, there will be light refreshments, there will be opportunity to network, because we have members from the community coming together, especially from elected officials, new city council, things like that. And so we invite people to come and be a part, because it's going to be a wonderful day. But then after that, just don't go home.
Go find someplace else to be for a couple hours.
For a couple hours, and we invite you right back out to the MLK Commission's MLK celebration, again, starting at the promenade and then making its way to First Congregational Church. Service starts at 7.
And the march starts at 6 at the promenade.
Right.
And so you're going to be they will, if you go to the promenade, you will be marching to First Congregational Church. But you can, if you have limitations,
right,
show up at First Congregational Church at 7,
right,
and be able to sit through the service there.
Again,
exactly. And so the other hat that you wear, and for the last minute, how are things at Trinity AME Zion? Like what's been going on, and how do you what are some of the things that excite you?
Well, what excites me the most is that we have an influx of young people coming to visit. And, if anything, that youth signal a future for your church. So we are going to celebrate 188 years of existence this year.
Yeah.
And, you can't live that long without having a new generation come and be a part of your membership. So we've been celebrating that, finding ways to incorporate youth into our programming. We're opening up a kitchen project dedicated to youth. We are also using youth for different community events. And so we just see this renewed sense of revival at Trinity based around the youth. And we just praying to God that, that continues to move us forward and propel us into the year to come.
Damond, it's been a pleasure having you on. The Reverend Dr. Damond Wilson, who is the pastor at Trinity AME Zion, president of NAACP. You'll be a speaker at the MLK Commission's celebration this weekend. Thank you for being on Encounter, and also,
thank you for having me.
You're doing a great job as finance director and as business director for the Council of Churches. We're really grateful to have you on. And for all of you, I pray that this weekend you would find a way for you to be able to be good and kind and generous to each other, and help extend the vision for the beloved community that Dr. King started. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being on.